Coming up on Double Tap TV.
We answer all the burning questions about what 5G technology means for accessibility.
The latest tech.
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
Interviews.
There will be several dozen shows trickling in over the months.
Accessibility.
We're actually running a pilot scheme with the CNIB at the moment.
This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome to another edition of Double Tap TV. I am Marc AFLALO. Alongside me, Stephen Scott, kind of virtually, in the UK. If you want to get in touch with us, it is feedback@ami.ca. That's our email address. On Twitter, it is @DoubleTapCanada. Use the hashtag AskDoubleTap. We could feature your question, perhaps, in this week's show, Stephen. Maybe. Stephen, what are these buzzwords that I keep hearing and people keep asking me questions about? Because kind of like you, we tend to be the go-to person when it comes to anything with technology, whether good or bad, whether it's, fixing someone's Word document or just trying to get some kind of perspective. I think we unfortunately end up being that go-to person, and everybody keeps asking me about 5G. They keep saying, Mark, what is 5G? What's it going to be about? Is it something that we need now? Do I need a new phone? So many questions about it. So we figured, what better way to kick off this, wonderful year, but by talking about 5G and what it really means to us, right?
Yeah, I mean, 5G is going to be the one thing we're probably going to hear a lot about, especially over the next few months. I would say from February onwards, you're going to hear a lot about 5G. And the question is, what is it? What is 5G? Well, put it simply, Mark, it is really simple in some ways. It's the 5th generation way of how your mobile phone connects to the internet, right? So 5G promises a lot of things. It promises faster data download, faster upload as well, wider coverage as well, which is really important, and more stable connections. How many times have we been cut off on a call? You and I, when we talk on the phone, we get cut off, or we try to do a Skype call and it's jarring and it's jittery. Well, all of that goes away with 5G because it's far more stable. It's about making better use of the radio spectrum, which is how this whole thing works, and enables far more devices to access the mobile internet at the same time. Now, while 5G will make a huge difference to our personal lives, the benefits are far-reaching for our military, our health services, and even our transport systems.
Okay, that's pretty cool, but Stephen, how does it all work?
Well, there are obviously a number of new technologies that are likely to be applied here, and it's important to say that not all of the protocols for 5G have been hammered out yet. That's really important to know. So, it's still a bit of a work in progress, and companies are working together to get a solution to this. Higher frequency bands is the key here. They have a lot of capacity. The problem is that they have short wavelengths, and that means their range is lower. Now, basically what that means is it's more easily blocked by physical objects. So what that means is you'll see more clusters of smaller phone masts actually closer to the ground rather than high up, which will transmit these so-called millimeter waves, and that gives us much higher numbers of transmitters and receivers, and of course that means that even more of us can get online at the same time at the fastest speed.
Now, what kind of speeds are we talking about when you're saying fastest speeds here?
Well, let's compare it. So at the moment, 4G offers around about 45 megabits per second. That's on a good day. And that'll let you maybe download a film, or it'll maybe let you access Netflix, for example, and that's fine. But you'll notice that, with that pressing play, and like I said earlier, with the pressing play and the time it takes to start and all of that, it can be a bit slow. What they're hoping for is that 5G will go 10 to 20 times faster. I mean, that's incredible when you think about it.
Can you imagine that? 10 to 20 times faster than what we have now?
Now, this is, of course, in the real world. At the moment, that's laboratory conditions. So we will see how this works when we're all trying to access it at the same time, just in the way that 4G operates. And, the best example of that is, like I said, New Year, when everyone's trying to use the phones at the same time. Now, you might wonder, Mark, well, why do we need all of this?
Yeah,
well,
that's my next question.
Yeah, I know it was, and that's why I thought, we should talk about it, because simply the world is going mobile and we're consuming more data every single year, particularly as the popularity of video and music streaming increases. Now, existing spectrum bands are becoming more and more congested, as we've been saying, and that leads to the breakdown in services, particularly when lots of us are trying to use 4G in the same area at the same time. 5G is much better at handling this. And of course, that can affect a whole wide range of devices, from mobile phones to equipment sensors, video cameras, smart street lights as well. So it opens up a whole new world, really, when it comes to the capability of phones, but also smart devices.
One of the benefits that people keep talking about is in rural areas, in places that are underserved now by 4G, people that still have 2G, maybe 3G speeds. They're saying that they're going to benefit, be one of the ones to benefit the most out of 5G service. Which begs the question is why? Why are they going to benefit more? Is it because the 5G technology just has a longer reach? Is that why we're going to be able to get people in rural areas quicker access to this kind of a service?
We've got to be careful with this one, Mark, because the idea that rural services will benefit, of course, is true, but it costs a lot of money to put in that infrastructure to make it work. Like I say, you need lots of transmitters and you need them all very close together. So this is going to cost money, but the reality is it costs a lot less than trying to build in fixed line broadband solutions, which means digging up roads and huge long roads that you may have to get cable down or even over to work. So 5G makes more sense in this regard, and of course that is where the benefit will come. Probably we're realistically talking about, for rural parts of Canada, 2022, 2023 realistically. Those of course will still be served by existing 3G and 4G networks.
I kind of laugh and I joke about the fact that we become the go-to for people when they have any kind of technological problem, any issue whatsoever. I always tell people, I say, type exactly what you're going to ask me into a Google search. If you don't get the answer to your question in the first couple pages, then pick up the phone. I'm more than happy to help you. But that's what I'm going to do most of the time, is I'm going to type it into Google for the first time. So you and I we understand this situation, but we are going to actually practice what we preach, because we've got a guest lined up for the next couple segments who knows way more about 5G than I think you and I could ever even try to piece together. So we're going to bring him on after we take a quick break. It is Double Tap TV. You are Steven Scott. I am Marc AFLALO. And don't forget to get involved in the show, because we want to get to your questions later on as well. It is feedback@ami.ca. That's our email address. And of course on Twitter, it is @DoubleTapCanada. Use the hashtag #AskDoubleTap, and we will get to at least one of those questions with our guest upcoming after we take a quick break. This is Double Tap TV.
Love Double Tap TV? Listen to AMI Audio for Double Tap Canada every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for news and reviews on everything tech. This is Double Tap TV.
We are back on Double Tap TV. I am Marc AFLALO along with Steven Scott. Thanks for being here for the ride. If you want to get in touch with us, feedback@ami.ca is the email address. If you want to find us on Twitter, it is @DoubleTapCanada. Use that hashtag #AskDoubleTap, because we're going to be getting to your questions about 5G after the break. But first, Steven, I'm very excited to continue this conversation with our next guest.
Yes, we are joined by Robin Spinks from the RNIB in the UK. That's the Royal National Institute of Blind People. Robin, lovely to have you on Double Tap TV.
Great to be here.
So I thought we'd continue our conversation about 5G on this programme, and in this segment really focus on the benefits that you think that 5G will bring to a blind and partially sighted community. What do you think is going to be the big benefit for us?
I think people have often talked about the progression from 3G to 4G, and it's somehow or other being akin to that. I would argue it's going to be a completely different change over time, which will have a much greater effect. So think about internet connectivity that's 10 times faster than what you can currently get in your home with fibre broadband. And then think about something that's 100 times faster than what you're used to on your phone. That's ultimately what we're shooting for. So it's been likened to moving from a dual carriageway to a 16-lane superhighway. Now, it's worth pointing out that really those analogies assume 5G operating correctly. We're at a very early stage right now, and arguably what is seen as consumer 5G at this moment in time is still not really what people will ultimately experience. But in terms of blind and partially sighted people, huge far-reaching changes, everything from the potential for self-driving cars to talk to one another, as they move about the environment, and to talk to gas stations and to talk to charging points. And also huge implications in terms of medical and surgical implications in terms of connectivity, and bringing in doctors and bringing in medical expertise, and effectively being able to do remote surgeries. So, and enormous changes that will impact every bit of society.
Robin, earlier on the show we talked about latency, and it's one of the big buzzwords when we try to explain what 5G is. And my analogy is always kind of the streaming analogy. When you hit play here on Netflix, how long will it take for that signal to get to the servers and start playing back? And that kind of is a good analogy for Netflix. So naturally, and you brought up the medical side of things, my question is kind of along those lines. How does it really help the medical field? How does is it the latency or the lower latency that helps to make remote surgeries more of a reality today?
So there's the reliability, the speed, and also the reduced latency. This is the first time that technology, cellular technology, will actually operate faster than your mind. It's going to be that fast.
Wow.
So just to give you an example, it would be possible to have a robotic glove, and for a surgeon at a distance of thousands of miles away via a 5G connection to actually be effectively conducting a surgical procedure remotely using haptics and using a robotic glove and 5G. One of the demonstrations that's been carried out here in the UK that's particularly interesting was the 5G ambulance, and that was actually demoed by O2 quite recently. And it brings home the point that, currently if you're unfortunate enough to be in an accident, be that a road traffic accident or some other kind of incident, and you require paramedic support, it wouldn't be possible for, support to be provided remotely to you. You would need to have paramedics in a vehicle by the side of the road potentially, or some other safe place where, instant sort of surgical help could be delivered. Now, the 5G ambulance is connected via 5G, and it's possible for that ambulance to draw upon the support and knowledge and expertise of doctors and surgeons anywhere in the world. So anyone who happens to be available to do remote support to an ambulance that's parked by the side of a road in England or Scotland or wherever can reliably and safely provide support to that patient. That's quite transformational.
I mean, that is incredible, but what I'm getting from all of this is that 5G really is an enabler, Robin. That the technology is wonderful, but it's an enabler to allow, for example, blind and partially sighted people to have access to autonomous vehicles. It's not that 5G will give us anything particularly towards driverless vehicles, but it'll give us the ability for those vehicles to function, which of course then in turn benefits us.
That's right. I mean, that's the canvas upon which the whole thing will function. It's all dependent on connected objects speaking to one another and, transmitting information that is safety critical. So there cannot be any lag in connectivity. You couldn't do, a supported self-driving car network within a geofence in a city, for example. You could not do that with current 4G connectivity. It simply wouldn't be safe enough. There's too much latency. So that you're absolutely right. That kind of experience is enabled. And if you go somewhere, like you got Austin in Texas, where there's a Waymo self-driving car pilot underway. There's also one in Phoenix. It's actually delivering connectivity that's way beyond the levels that people are typically accustomed to in terms of using their smartphones. So yeah, a whole bunch of things will be possible health-wise, transport-wise, travel-wise, and also of course the obvious things like accessing movies, streaming, being able to take part in a webinar, for example. A lot of people today have a reasonably good experience of that. If they're in a city environment or they've got good connectivity, it's pretty reliable, but it really will transform in terms of the potential for that to be much more reliable, much faster, and then also hopefully available in spaces where it isn't currently available. We've got, even in a small country like the UK, often there are parts of the population that are not connected to 4G. They're not yet getting the benefit of that connectivity that a lot of people in cities are taking for granted. So, I think we need to be mindful not only of the potential that this technology has, which is enormous and hugely liberating for those of us with a visual impairment, but we need to be mindful of the fact that this has got to become available across the country. So, reach is hugely important. People in rural areas can't simply be left out. And that's clearly something that will be very relevant, not just in the UK, but all over the world. Certainly rural parts of Canada, where people will want to have the same access to connectivity as they have in urban centres. So it's super exciting. It will transform the way that people live and work and play and shop.
But, and I have to say, the big but here is that, of course, as you said earlier, it will take time to emerge in those rural areas, especially in rural parts of Canada, for example, where even fixed line broadband internet access will be slow. But I'm interested in the whole discussion around independence. So I think about something like ERRA, for example, which of course is prominent in the US and in Canada, hasn't yet made its way to the UK, where you are.
I've just been demoing it earlier on today.
Oh, well, there you go. So obviously the movement is there to get it, to make it available, which is great. But I guess the question is, how would 5G impact on a service like that?
I think for concierge services like ERRA and anything that would operate in a similar way, this is about speeding up connectivity, minimizing lag and latency, making the whole experience more seamless, and also enabling you to use those services out and about, so you're not using them necessarily on your home Wi-Fi or hotel Wi-Fi. You're out and about in a busy environment, and you're maybe using the support of a service like ERRA to help you to identify your shopping, for example. So you've made various purchases and you want some help identifying which one is which, so that you can wrap particular gifts in particular festive papers or bags, for example. That might be a really timely example. Or you might just want some help in separating out clothing purchases. You could be doing all of that in a coffee shop, reliably, with the right level of connectivity. But who knows, you might even also be able to see services like that extending into other areas where they can do other things for you. They can help you, assist you with hobbies, for example. If you're doing something that requires vision and it's for an extended period, it could be possible to have a companion or buddy or helper or friend with you to remotely help you to do something that is a distinctly visual task at a significant distance. So the possibilities are endless when you think about it in terms of what 5G, consumer 5G, will ultimately enable.
Robin, we've got some questions from our Twitter followers, so we're going to take a quick break. This is Double Tap TV. I am Marc AFLALO. You are Steven Scott, and our guest this week is Robin Spinks. Let's take a quick break. If you want to get in touch with us, feedback at ami.ca. On Twitter, it's at Double Tap Canada, and use that hashtag AskDoubleTap, just like Lindsay did from Burnaby, BC. We'll take a quick break and come back with that question.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome back to Double Tap TV. Marc AFLALO and Steven Scott, and this week joined by Robin Spinks from the RNIB. Guys, if you want to get in touch with us, again, feedback at ami.ca is our email address. On Twitter, it is at Double Tap Canada, using the hashtag AskDoubleTap, just like Lindsay did from Burnaby, BC. Lindsay writes us, "Hey guys, I'm all into this 5G stuff, but will my current phone work on this new network?" I think collectively, guys, we know the answer to this, but Robin, I guess you're the de facto guest, so you get to answer this question from Lindsay.
Yeah, it's like a lot of other elements of the technology industry. There is something that's called built-in obsolescence, which is often talked about by sociologists and product people. Often it's talked about by marketeers as a product upgrade path. Yeah, maybe that sounds a bit more optimistic and positive. So the answer is, Lindsay, quite simply, you will need a device that is 5G capable. So the first consumer devices really came on the market in 2019. 5G capable devices from Huawei and Samsung, for example. What we're likely to see in 2020 is a massive expansion of the range of 5G capable devices coming onto the market. So most notably Mobile World Congress, which is the biggest global trade show in the world for the mobile industry. That takes place in February in Barcelona, and that's where a lot of companies make their product announcements. Samsung tend to be pretty much center stage, as do Huawei these days. So I think the market is pushing hard for it. You know, if you think about the fact that smartphone technology has plateaued quite a bit in recent times, yes, we've got things like foldable phones coming along. We're probably likely to see a fairly big development on battery technology in 2020 as we start to see solid state batteries coming on stream. But you know, in terms of technical innovations that make a big difference to the end experience that the consumer has, let's just say there's an enormous thirst for 5G, particularly if that's available on comparable commercial terms. If it's much more expensive, as it has been for the very early adopters, then the appeal will be limited. But where it starts to become available on similar commercial terms, you know, customers will see it as part of an upgrade cycle.
Wow, it sounds like a very exciting time, Mark. We're learning a lot here on Double Tap TV today, aren't we?
You know, Robin, other than doubletap.online, are there any other resources that you would recommend for people who are more interested in 5G or to see what the rollout's going to be like, I guess, globally?
Yeah, so the GSMA website is a really good example. So the GSMA is the kind of global body around standards and mobile, and the industry body. That's a really good one to look at. Really what I would say is get on Twitter and do a little bit of a hashtag 5G search if you have the time. And also there are some great blogs in terms of video blogs. So, you know, the prominent people out there who are kind of round about the 10 million subscriber mark on YouTube.
Robin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We're going to have you on again, I'm sure, in the near future as this technology continues to evolve. Steven, you know, you have such good friends. I don't know why they keep coming on our show.
I know. Don't we just have the greatest people that come on this show? Yeah, Robin, it's been great having you on because I think it's so important that people understand this. People can be very frightened by this technology. And I think our job here is to try and say, actually, this could be great, but it is a stepping stone. The technology will come, and the most important thing is that no matter what happens with 5G, accessibility will be at the heart of everything these companies do, which is amazing. And that's also, I know, part of what you do at RNIB. So thank you for what you do, and thanks for coming on the show.
Robin, thank you for being here. Steven, thank you guys, of course, for being here on this week's edition of Double Tap TV. I am Marc AFLALO, and again, on behalf of everybody here, thank you guys for being in here. If you want to get in touch, it's feedback@ami.ca on Twitter, @DoubleTapCanada, and don't forget that hashtag AskDoubleTap. And finally, head on doubletap.online for everything that we do here. On behalf of Stephen Scott and Robin Spinks, I am Marc AFLALO. We'll speak to you again next week.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap.
Hosted by Marc AFLALO and Stephen Scott. Editing Marc AFLALO and Will ATTAR. Integrated Described Video Specialist Ron Rickford. Coordinating Producer Jennifer Johnson. Director Production Karen Nye. Director Programming Brian Perdue. VP Programming and Production John Melville. President and CEO David Errington. Copyright 2020 Accessible Media Inc.